Hello everyone and welcome to the Silvavine podcast with your host Michelle Da Silva, a podcast that focuses on creating healing and awareness. Welcome back to the second part interview with Dorian Johnson, who is the co-author of the award-winning memoir titled The View from Above, one father's memoir of grief guided to grace, which is the story of the search for his oldest son Balan, who passed away in a hiking accident back in 2017. Let's dive in and listen further.
Perspective that we have, or even the perspective that a person has. Because when we're right in the middle of something and we're hurting from some experience that we have had that we either think we're never going to make it through, or if it doesn't happen, we're never going to make it through. But I think the most important thing is that we have to sit with whatever it is that we feel. And I hated that answer at the beginning, because I'm like, why would I want to feel that way? Why would I want to sit in all this misery and this pain? Over the years, I've learned the importance of that, because that pain, that fear, that shame, that guilt, that doubt, all of that, they are just things that let us know that something's going on. Something that we need to be aware of. So if we sit there with it and say, what is it? And there's such a huge gap between fear and courage. And right in the middle is that uncertainty. And that drives me crazy, because I'm like, what is it? What am I so uncertain about? If we look at an electric fence and I say, I'm uncertain about it, most people say, well, what does that mean? I don't know if I'm scared to go touch it or not. Most people say, I'm scared to go touch it, but they don't do anything about it, My point is that so many times we don't know what to do with these emotions, these feelings, and we want to make it so that the bad ones go away, that we can just numb them off. But if we do, we get beyond feeling for the good things too. So we can't just numb the things that we feel like we don't want to feel anymore. I mean, I know that for experience. And so it's hard to start waking some of these things up and try to catch right back up where you want to be. So if someone is going through something, has gone through something, I love just having the conversation. What is it? Why? Why does it hurt? And all of a sudden that brings them to the forefront. That kind of grounds them as far as like, what is it that makes it so that it hurts so bad, or that they're so uncertain about something? And it allows them, gives them permission to speak openly about whatever it is and however they want to say it. And the thought process, they're working through this on their own as well. It's not a bad thing, but as they talk through it, they can hear, they can feel, they can choose whatever words they want to say where they're at. And because someone has gone through something, they can pick up on those words. They can pick up on those feelings and emotions, say, been there, done it. I don't know what it would be like to go through this, but I did not like sitting in this pool of muddy water over here, trying to figure out what it was that was making me so unhappy or hurting me. And the tough part is when somebody will say, well, what do you want? I don't know. What would be something that would help you be happy? I don't know. And I say that, like straight up, sounds forceful, but sometimes we don't know, because we know what we do want, but it's not reasonable. And so I think to sit and validate someone saying, I get it. I get it. Just know that I'm not going anywhere. And whatever you need, whatever you want, I'm here for you. I think the other thing is the self-reflection, the self-evaluation. And I'm not talking about, how can I be more patient? How can I be more kind? How can I be more, I need to work through, do these different things. It's the fact of, if I'm kind to other people, what do I receive back from it? How do I get out of myself? How do I get out of my own mind so I can see exactly what it is that I want and what I need? And here's the reason I say that is because we talk about instant gratification. Instant gratification is one of the most derogatory things that we talk about because we consider getting a credit card, oh, because I can go buy whatever I want to and then just deal with the consequences later. If someone wants good instant gratification, if they want to get out of where they are, go be kind. Go be accepting of somebody. Go find something to do that allows and helps somebody else to be happy. Get a door, get a, you know, help somebody who has dropped something. Or the reason I say that is because if we do that, we recognize something that is happening in them, or we give them a compliment. We recognize something in them that is in us.
Mm. So I'm going to stop you there. So when you, it's
Okay.
interesting that you say like being accepting of them,
Okay.
okay, accepting of somebody else. So my thoughts when like what popped into my head when you say that is that um because of this processes you go through with regards to grief, there probably, and correct me if I'm wrong and if you don't agree, that you have to reach a point of acceptance of
Yes,
yourself.
absolutely. Yeah. And I can tell you, and that's such a great point because I heard and I love the saying, the quote, I, um, I sat with my anger long enough until she told me her real name is grief. And I say addictions and substance abuse and bullying and suicide attempts and depression and anxiety, all of that. We have to accept the fact that the majority of everything, all of these feelings are coming from grief that we have not dealt with. So it's not a weakness to say, I'm grieving. We all have to do it, or else it's going to be a nightmare. We're never going to find happiness. And I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, actually, and I said, it's interesting because you see the biggest, roughest, tatted up guy with, a bandana on his head, riding a motorcycle. You start talking to him in a moment. He says, I remember when my mom died. Oh, such a different person. The ice melts away. If you can get in there and have that conversation and find where they accept the moment where they're just like, "Ugh," and I can't do this. I'm so frustrated by all of this stuff. The acceptance is the hardest because it's not, accepting there's a problem. It's accepting that you're human. You accepting that all of that love, everything, ugh, everything about that person, that place, the thing, the opportunity, everything that you don't get to experience in your life anymore. That is such a hard place to be. And yet, the other part that's so beautiful is the connections that we can make when we break like that. And it's not really breaking, it's just a fact of we see somebody else that's struggling and we're like, I wonder what it is. And we can connect with the experience. But what I've noticed is I connect more with a virtue that person has because of going through grief, because of going through loss. And I say, I want to be like that person. Well, guess what? I am like that person. I just won't acknowledge it in me. I'll acknowledge it in them, saying, wow, look how brave they are. Look how courageous. Look how much integrity they have. Well, how do I know that they do if I don't know or if I don't have it? You know, I think that's the big difference and I'm so grateful for being able to receive something like this that is so, it's such a simple concept, but we forget about it because it's like, well, just be patient. I'm not going to be patient. Allow yourself grace. What does that even mean?
Mhm.
You know, because it's like, just be patient. To me, it's like, when you're hurt and you smash your hand, or you have, something's going on, and somebody's like, well, let me just help you. And they put something on and it stings because it's cleaning out the little cut you've got. And all of a sudden you just like, you go crazy on yourself, and because it hurts, because of the pain. And if somebody said, just be patient with it, all we're going to do is just say, patience is not going to solve this problem. And yet it is, because we sit there and we allow the pain to go away, and the Band-Aid's there and we can move on. But we don't allow ourselves that because we think we just have to be tough. We have to grit our teeth and keep going and stuff. If we show that as weakness, especially men, we're horrible at that. Because it's, I mean, you just watched me do it. I mean, I just choked it down because I don't want to show this emotion about all of these amazing things that I feel. And yet it's so scary for us to say, yeah, this is how I feel, because we've always ever been taught is, you don't show that. Just get up, pull yourself up, and keep going. My thought is the more vulnerable and authentic we can be, it allows other people to see the beauty of being authentic and vulnerable, instead of trying to push through certain things. If the rock doesn't move, there's a lot of experiences and lessons that you've learned, but maybe that rock isn't supposed to move, you know? And so I think to myself, what is that virtue formula that we need to put together for ourselves to say, who are we? Are we being who we know we are, or are we trying to be that tough person, live up to somebody else's expectations? We're going to be miserable our whole damn lives if we do. What do you think?
So would you say, Dorian, there's also an element of somebody who's going through this grief, and obviously you've gone through it and you've changed your perspective on it. In terms of when you go through the process, like you mentioned the word self-reflection earlier on, and I suppose going through that whole process, then you do have to self-analyze and go, okay, so what am I having to learn through this experience? What is it teaching me? What am I having to let go as a person?
Yes.
What was the expectation around this person that I was hoping for, that my expectation wasn't met? How's it going to be affecting me and how I'm going to show up in life? So I suppose it's going through that whole process of where it becomes a little bit about, you mentioned vulnerability, getting to that core of vulnerability, and this has perhaps taught me this and that maybe I can express more, or I can appreciate more, and that I'm not to blame. And do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I think we can do so much self-reflection. We can do so much, shifting in our perspective. We can look at things and say, you know what? I've got to forgive myself for this, and I've got to forgive others for that. I think honestly, what it really comes down to is to be able to recognize the moment when we take that first step, and not just sit there and just say, I'm self-reflecting, I'm doing this, and it's all here, because it's not going to do any good. You can say, oh gosh, everything is great and wonderful, until I take that first step and something happens that is similar to what is behind us. How do we respond? Does that make sense? How do we make a choice at that point? Because if you and I are disagreeing on something, and we'll use the example of you say, well, this is what I think we need to do, so let's plan on it. Even if I'm not, if I'm quiet, if I don't say, okay, I agree, that's what we'll do, I still have the opportunity. I give myself permission to make my own decision, right? So, for example, the myth that all time or time heals all wounds. That's the reason it's a myth is because we can sit there and self-reflect and all that stuff. But it was shared with me. It's like if you get a flat tire when you're driving your car, you can sit and wait for that tire to fix itself, which is never going to happen, right? We can sit there and we can get mad. We can get mad at whatever popped the tire. We can get mad at the tire. We can get mad at the whoever made the tire, all of that. We can get mad at the people who aren't showing up because we've called them 3 times and that. We can call friends and stuff like that. But it's still our responsibility to get out and find out what tools we have in the trunk or the boot, right? Okay. And we see, do I have the proper tools? Do I have a jack? Do I have a tire iron to start taking the lug nuts off? If we at least do that, open up the trunk and people see what's happening, there's a good chance somebody may stop and say, hey, how can I help you? Right? Even if they don't, we're still in the process of not just solving that problem, but we're in the process of moving forward, even if that car is still there, because we are being productive in lifting up that car, putting on, whatever spare we have, even if we have to drive real slow. As soon as that's on, everything's back in, we can proceed. We can be on our way. And we still have the choice of having a good attitude or a bad attitude about all of that. Even if no one stops, guess what? We can feel proud, so to speak, because we did this on our own. And I know how to do it the next time. And we may have, grubby black hands, but I can be proud at the end of the day that I did something instead of just sitting there hoping the problem gets solved. And so what's going to happen the next time? It may not be your tire go flat. Maybe it's something else in your life where somebody doesn't agree with you, or something happens and you're like, oh, you can look at this and say, it's not going to do any good to sit and complain and gripe and get mad at somebody. Let's take a step forward and figure out how to fix this. Even if it's a YouTube video you watch and you try to figure it out. My point is that the whole perspective, the shift in perspective, you have to have action, which means that if everything, I use the example of a flat tire. One of the worst days of my entire life, outside of losing Balin and that, I was supposed to be in court. Okay, we were just going to do a phone call. Well, it was the same day that we had that total eclipse a few years back. Okay, and ironically, it was that day, and they called the wrong number. They dialed the wrong number, and so I was never able to say my side, go straight to the other person, and they get whatever they want and that. So I'm just like, you have got to be kidding me. What kind of a day is this? This is ridiculous. So on my way home, I'm driving around and I'm just like, just mad. And all of a sudden, as I'm driving down the highway, I see a car stopped. And I notice that they have a flat tire. And I notice there's at least 2 or 3 women in the car. I don't even have to ask myself. I flip around and I go back. And when the driver gets out, she's like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting here 45 minutes for AAA, for, somebody to come and help us and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, do you have a spare? I don't know what we have. Let's start moving stuff around. So I go and I start helping do this. Well, what does that do for me? I'm completely out of whatever I was going through, and I get to have an opportunity to help. Well, a police officer pulls up behind and it's like, "Hey, can I help?" I said, "I just about have this all done. However, will you call?" And it was almost 5 o'clock. And I said, "Will you call the tire shop here in town and see if, um, what time they're going to close, and let them know that we're going to send somebody right now that just had a flat tire. They just needed a replacement and stuff like that." He gets on the phone, takes care of it. They're waiting for you. And all of a sudden, it's this beautiful, oh, Michelle, this beautiful experience, because I turn around and I just go, and I didn't even tell him my name. Okay. It's not that I want to do this as a secret, but it's the fact of I got everything out of that I needed. Okay. A few days later, it wasn't long that I get a card in the mail. No idea who it's from. Open it up. I didn't even know what their names were, but they like, "We cannot tell you how much we appreciate your kindness. We know that when we pray, angels listen to us, and we know that you are one of those angels who listened so you could help." I Words don't mean anything to me, but the intention behind that, absolutely beautiful. So there's more to this than what meets the eye when we're just like, oh, there's that guy who gets the door. Oh, there's that guy who stops and helps people. Oh, there's that guy. It's what allows, when we say, what do you want? How do you want to be happy? What do you want? I don't know. But if we are able to start walking and see something that we recognize, that we're like, yeah, that right there, that's a beautiful thing. And I can walk away saying, I didn't want to be happy. Today is just a miserable day, but I couldn't help myself. That's a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, completely. And you know what springs to mind when you say that? It's like, I think that all of us have that very intention that you're speaking about, but
Yeah.
just covered up, or we're just too conditioned to realize this. But if you see somebody who collapses on the street,
Okay.
it's instinct. All of us have instinct to go and help that person,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
get up, or try to support them. We don't have to know this person. We don't know them. They're a
Mm-mm.
total stranger. But as soon as somebody trips or falls, it's instinctive. And I
Yes.
think that's what we are down to, that core, that, that loving, helpful creatures, human
Yes.
beings,
Yes.
where we have that vulnerability, we have that love, that we have that care. And perhaps what your message is, what you're saying is like, even through those darkest moments, that grief, if we have the intention to connect, and
Yes.
you mentioned virtues to add that onto,
Yes.
then it
Yes.
automatically moves it into action, and that uplifting connection of how
Yes.
you can be as a person.
Yes. Yes. Let me share one last thing. I promise I will try to make this. This is one of my favorite stories of Beta's. Okay, you said the word connection. I'm also going to add the word awareness, because that in itself, if we are aware of what's going on, because yeah, if somebody falls, everybody's going to notice that. But if we see something that seems normal and we have no idea what's going on, the turmoil or whatever,
Mm.
okay? So when Beta was about, gosh, what was he? He was in sixth grade, so he was probably 11 or 12. And we were at the store. I had all my kids. It was just me. I had all my kids with me. And so I was trying to manage the chaos. We're trying to get out of the store, out to the car. And Beta was always like, why do I have to be here with you? Why, okay. All of a sudden I'm starting to get everybody in the car and put our stuff in. And I just kind of look over my shoulder. This is a I didn't realize how often this happened with me until I started thinking more about the story. So I look over my shoulder, kind of see where Baden is, kind of take in consideration everything that's going on. I notice a little old lady coming out of the store pushing a cart, and she was headed straight for her car, which is right up front in the parking lot, right next to the where you return your carts and that. Something said, send Balin over and have him help her at least take the cart back to, where, so she doesn't have to go there, put all of her stuff in, take the cart over, get back in her car. So I said, hey, Balin, see that lady right there? Yeah. And it wasn't very far. It's probably maybe 20 yards at most. And so I'm watching. I said, see that lady right there? Go over and help her, at least just take her cart back for her so she doesn't have to. Really? I said, yeah, just hurry and go do it, but be careful. He was never one to make a big deal about anything. Like, don't make a big deal about what I do. Just, okay. So I'm finishing getting everybody in and that. And I'm all of a sudden I hear this, oh my gosh, thank you. That is so nice of you. And I look back and I swear to you, Ben is standing off of the ground, happy as a lark because of what that did for him. Okay. All of a sudden he's like, wow, okay, this is great. So he comes, crosses that where the cars are driving back and forth and walks behind the cars. There's about 3 or 4 cars down from where I'm at. Somebody is putting stuff in their car, and out of one of their bags, a can falls out and rolls right to his feet. He picks it up. That's what we would normally do. He picks it up and hands it to the person. Oh my gosh, thank you. What a good helper you are. I just noticed what you did over there. That you're a good young man. From that point, he is 3 cars away from where we are. Someone had just not long, they just barely pulled up with their cart and started putting stuff in their car. Sometimes we have a good helper in the kitchen that helps us a little more than what we need to. Balin steps up and starts grabbing these bags and hands them to the man who could have done it himself. This man looks at him and says, I cannot believe what a good helper you are. This is amazing. Looks up at me, winks, because I'm kind of giggling, saying, that's a lot of help right there, right? My point is Balin could usually not get a word in edgewise when we're driving anywhere, because 2 sisters and a younger brother who we're talking about everything. The whole way home, Balin was asking me, did you see that? Did you notice that? And oh my gosh, it was awesome. That can went right to my feet, and I can't. And then I started looking for other things to do and how to help and all of that. That was the moment he became aware of what is going on around him. And I kept hearing story after story, even at that age, that I can't believe how aware this kid is of his surroundings, of what's going on, and how he can say, hold that thought real quick and check on somebody who he knew that they just walked in, but he didn't know who it was, right? Are you okay? And so, okay. So my point is that he was compelled. I made him go and help that lady. Then he has another opportunity right in front of him. Then he chooses other opportunities to help other people. And what did it do for him for the rest of his life? That's the beauty of all of this, is to be able to say, I don't want to, but then you know what it's going to lead to. And it has nothing to do with somebody's like, oh, I saw what you did, I want to help you. It allows you to open up and be who you are, and you don't have to rely on anybody else or anything else outside of you for that happiness. So when somebody's like, what do you want to do to be happy? I don't know. Let's go to the store. Let's go find something to do. That's what this is all about. And that's the beauty of it, Because once we realize that, I have my dark days, I have days where I'm just like, "Ugh," but I also know who I am. I also know without a doubt and very humbly who I am and the purpose behind knowing who I am. That's a lot of words, but I love that story.
What has grief taught you?
To be kind. To respect other space. To see the beauty in them as they grieve, because that beauty is in me. Grief is not, it's an ugly thing, or it can be. But grief shows us so many things about us that we don't have the opportunity to see or to learn unless we go through that.
Mm.
Because the reason I say that is because there are certain experiences that if I went through it, if I learned my lessons that way, I don't know what I would have done, but I haven't had the opportunity to learn. I'm not saying I want to, but I also know that I I would have never known me. I would have never known what the term integrity means. Vulnerability, authenticity scared the hell out of me, especially vulnerability, because it just means I'm willing to let somebody kill me mentally and emotionally. But what grief does is it sits with us and says, I'm going to show you different parts of you. You had no idea. And it doesn't say, and let's figure it out. But that's the beauty of virtue, because grief sits on one side and virtue sits on the other. Grief says, did you notice that? Did you notice that part right there? Did you notice that ugly part right there of you? And all of a sudden, virtue says, yeah, isn't it beautiful? The being perfectly imperfect, isn't it beautiful? Look how many opportunities you get to learn and acknowledge, and in your authenticity, when you fall on your face literally because you trip and somebody giggles or whatever, you're just like, I'm so glad somebody had the opportunity to enjoy that with me, because that was awesome, right? Or else look at something and say, I'm not good at that. I don't like that. I never have. I don't want that. I don't want to be like that. And so when somebody says, well, you have to, I don't. And so I think that the biggest thing, when I say grief did one of the most beautiful things, is it stripped me all the way down to my bones. And I'm just standing there, not knowing even who I am, how to move forward, how to take one step, and having to find the strength to even breathe. And what that does is when somebody says, this is what I'm going through, it's not that I relive all of that. It's the fact of, I don't want you to go through that. I don't, and so that's why empathy is such a beautiful connection. I don't want you to feel it. I want you to understand that even if we don't talk about it, there's somebody here who has been through something, and I see you, and you are absolutely beautiful. You were that way before, but you didn't realize it until after, you know? That's what this is all about, I think. And I love the fact that we can have this conversation, because as I talk about it more, it helps me to understand more about why this message is so important, why the connection of, even if I connect with myself, and say, give yourself grace. Okay. And then the next time, give yourself grace. That's easier because I give myself grace over here. And then I can give myself, and I can give other people grace because I know what it feels like.
It's like when, I can everything you've just said there just resonates. And that's why I wanted to have you on and speak to you about this. And when you said, it stripped me bare so that I was able to see parts of me
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
haven't been able to see before, and be able to appreciate the aspects of me that I hadn't before. And
yeah.
that's such a strong place to get to
It is.
because we're having to put on the show all the time.
Yep.
And then to be forced to get like that, where you go, actually, hang on a minute, like, I do have this wonderful side to me, and I do have this, and I'm going to apply
Yeah.
grace, I'm going to apply patience. And this is why I think, like, sometimes people run away from pain or run away from why has this happened to me. But like you rightly said, we need to go through to strip us to actually show how authentic, how wonderful we are, which will open us more to connect with each other
Yeah.
on that deeper level.
Yes. And as the thing that I learned, as I feel like I'm just standing out in the middle of a field, naked, just all the way down to my bones, and I look at myself at certain things, I'm just like, that's not as scary as I thought it would ever be.
Mm.
It's not. It's not a bad thing, because what it does is it allows me to rebuild. I know what I look like physically in that, but it helps me to rebuild and make sure I understand why these pieces go where, right? Because I've had the opportunity to meet people and be authentic and look at them like I'm looking at you, saying, I am so glad that I met you and I had the opportunity to have this conversation. You have no idea what you did for me today. And I'm like, what? Because of what I share. And yet every single time I see them from then on, it's going to be, I'm so glad I saw you today. I so needed to see you today. Thank you. Take that. I had a friend who reached out to me and said, she'll periodically say, thank you for everything that you do for me. It's not, this isn't about me, okay? But it's about the whole concept of being authentic, okay? So she reached out to me and said, I didn't know you knew my sister-in-law clear back 25 years ago. I'm like, who's your sister-in-law? And she told me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that girl. She is so much fun. We had, this, and she responded back. She's like, that's exactly what she said about you. And she
Right.
said this and this and this and this. Okay. I'm not saying this about me. It, I'll get back to the, being stripped down to our bones, because what I realized is that what Brooke was saying about me and being authentic and stuff is what Lisa was saying. Kelly was her friend. Lisa was saying almost identical to what Brooke said 25 years later. That is an honor. Okay. And so the things I went through during that 25 years and being stripped to my bones, putting everything back, saying, no, this is who I am. And all of a sudden I get to meet somebody and they see the very same person that somebody 25 years ago did. That's authenticity. That's vulnerability. But now I understand why, because I know I am a beautiful person and I know why. It's because I allow it. I allow me to be silly crazy, because when somebody comes in my space, they're not going to overshadow that. And it allows them to say, I can be whoever I want to be, because there's no judgment. There's no shame, no guilt, no trying to be better than them. I want them to be, there's so much to this, and yet it can be so simple. I think it's beautiful. That's why I'm so grateful to be able to share this.
And that's the thing, it's like when you actually reach that place and under that and understand that empathy and understanding, when you are stripped bare and you are able to look at it in the way that you do, it's actually quite simple.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And the beautiful part about all of that being, who you are is I've, shared some good things. I've walked into groups of people who I knew there were people who they would have beat me senseless if it didn't make them look bad. Okay.
Mm.
And in these groups, like I do a lot of fishing and I knew somebody really liked fish. So I went out on the reservoir that my dad lives on with a friend. We came back and said, "Hey, guess what? So and so, we got you some fish. And look at this big one." And everybody was, "Oh yeah, da 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 da." And the person who would have loved to beat me senseless stood there. And you know what? I didn't change who I was. I had the same conversation as if they weren't there. I am me because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they do or say. I can still walk in there in the lion's den and say, it doesn't matter whether I die or whether I continue to live. In this moment, this is who I am. And then we choose every day, all of these moments, good, bad, right or wrong, indifferent, whatever. We say, this is who I am. What does that do for the world? What does that do for my world? And then everybody else's world. That's how we change the world.
So what would be your number one tip? Because there might be people listening to this and they might still be angry,
Yeah.
rightly so. But having explained what you did and how you view things and how you've come out on the other side through your experience, what would be the number one thing you would advise somebody who still can't grasp the concept that you're sharing here today?
I would say, well, I would say top three. First one would be don't give up. Okay. Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on being patient with yourself. But the second thing I would say is find out why. Find out why. And if it's something that you can control, fix it, change it. If it's not, let it go. It's that let go of the outcome because so many times we're holding on to something. I've got friends, I had to do it too, where we know somebody is not going to change, but we always have the hope that they will. So we're going to still live up to their expectations. Nothing ever gets better. Let go, let them be. And so if they start getting mad and stuff like that, that's on them. Let them manage it. Don't let them take away your happiness. I think the last one, or the third one, would be look at who you are. Look at the things that make you happy. But even I'm going straight to take your name, and I don't care whether you use the chemistry of virtue, all of the virtue elements there, or if you take things and say this is who I am, and if you have an F in your name, you say fishing, or if you say this is the value, you decide who you are and you label that. You define yourself by the things that you know you can define yourself by that are part of you, but it gives you the opportunity to figure out why are those things important to me? What do I get from them? And then why is it that I can take those lessons, all of those things in my life or that I'm doing here and putting them in my life and decide that's who I am. So I think we have to sit with ourselves long enough to realize that we're going through grief and be patient with it and don't give up on ourselves. Give up. It's okay to give up and quit if it's not going to lead us or allow us to have our peace. That is so much more important than being right or making somebody else happy. But look at who you are and find out everything inside of you that defines you, nothing outside.
That's special, really special.
It's,
So, I mean, I loved this conversation with you. I really did. I mean, to have gone what you've gone through, must have taken tremendous strength, which you probably hadn't realized that you had within yourself, probably at some point.
never in a million years. Okay, I look at my two biggest fears were getting divorced and losing a child. Both of them are behind me. I should be able to do anything I want to now, right?
Mm.
But I also look at this and say, I didn't realize how strong. I didn't, and it wasn't even strength. It was just power. It was the power to do certain things. And yet I've asked myself, is there any other way I could have learned this stuff? The answer was, there's no other way.
No. And that power has come from you deciding that you were going to be the person that you
Yes.
knew you were and wanted to
Yes.
be.
Yes. Absolutely. Because it is my choice. It's nobody else's choice. If somebody says, well, you really should do this or you really should be, I think that's so great. What a wonderful answer. I'm going to turn that back to you and you start working on you and I'll work on me. Let's meet in the middle. I'm not going to change the things that I need to change. I know I'm working on, but I don't need anybody else to tell me. And if they do tell me, guess what? That's the things they need to work on because they're miserable. It doesn't take anything away from them. It just, and I'm not going to invalidate how they feel, but I'm not going to take the responsibility on of changing the things they think I need to change. And the beautiful part about this, you're in England. I'm over in a little town in Idaho in the United States. It's the same thing, right? That's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter where you are or whatever. It's what changes people's lives.
100%. 100%. What's your parting words? Where can people find you? What are you doing currently at the moment?
Facebook, you can find me, Dorian Johnson. I'm over on TikTok. I think I'm Balin's dad. I'll send a link. And on Instagram, I think I'm Balin's dad also. What I'm doing at the first of the year, I talked to somebody who she's been a life coach and that for quite a while, and I was going to mention this to you. We got together. The toughest part for me is putting the structure together. If I was going to teach a class or put this together in a something, she's been a coach. She's got some people who she's worked with before who have done boot camps and all of this. So as I lay everything out for her, she's like, yeah, we can put that together. That'd be simple to put the structure. So what we are doing is, along with the life lessons of climbing a mountain, along with the virtues, what the different myths are, the different losses that we need to take into consideration. We're calling it Journey to the Summit. And the reason we want to say it that way is because we want everybody to learn how to get to their own summit and have that, this is a beast of a hike, but talk about a view moment. Okay. We're calling it, but what we also want to do is we want to attach like an adventure to go on with it too. Okay. So in doing that, it means like if we want to go whitewater rafting, but we're going to attach that to the virtue of maybe fortitude, having courage in that, and taking a concept to say, this is something that people really struggle with. Let's look at, are you on the road that you've always wanted to be on? Are you living your very best life? What the heck does that even mean? So let's go somewhere and get you out of your own comfort zone. And we'll say, what does it look like to take that road untaken? And we have all these conversations about integrity and courage and bravery and integrity, but being vulnerable and gratitude. And we look at this and we say, so if you're not, who are you? What do you need to unlearn and go back and get on whatever path it is that you know that that's where you want to be? Because you're not going to get where you want to be going where you are right now. So we're calling it, it's J2S Extreme Adventures. And so we're in the process of putting all that together, and we want to do it as a nonprofit so people can come and do all of this and experience different things, and then say, you know what, I never knew that about myself. I never thought I would like sitting on the outside of the raft. I always thought I'd be in the middle with everybody packed in so I couldn't move and I'd be safe. Oh no, you're going to get on the outside of the raft. We're going to have fun, right? So there's that. Also, I'll send you the links, but I have the View from Above, which is the first book that I co-authored about the memorial hike a year to the day after Baden passed, looking for him and some anecdotes about him. And then there is A Day in the Life of Grief, which I talk about 10 different myths and debunk them, why they're just, it's not even close to being real and that. So those are both over on Amazon. And I read The View from Above. I read it for the audiobook. So it's on Audible also. So, and again, Michelle, I'm honored. This has been a phenomenal conversation. This is our second really, really good conversation.
No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for
I
sharing.
hope it's not our last. Honestly.
No, definitely not. I'd love to talk to you much deeper on probably stage 2.
Okay. Well, I'd love that.
Big one in the story. Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part for me is sometimes I love sharing all of this. I just don't want it to seem like it's coming from a place that it's not, meaning like, oh, there's another dad who lost a child in that. Oh, the things I have received that I never thought I could receive. Absolutely
not
beautiful.
at all. I don't think it comes across like that at all. And I think if people actually just sat and listened, you can listen and close your eyes and listen to the words that you've expressed. I do believe if you sat and listened to those words closely, you could be able to relate and resonate a little bit. Because like I said, I do think that there's every part of us that is pure to our core of who we really are. And sometimes we have to, in your case and some other people's cases, you have to be stripped bare to finally see that. Most of the time it is through hurt and grief. But there are also a lot of people that haven't had that opportunity to go through that and are still walking around with layers and layers to parts of themselves who they think that they are. But that's a whole different another story we could go into. Another conversation.
Yes. The last thing I will say about that and is this. When I look at somebody, one of the most beautiful things that I love being able to do this is to look at somebody and say, I see you. And it's not that I see, all of these different things and stuff, but it's being able to say, oh my gosh, there's something amazing and beautiful about you.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on it, but don't change. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, you're
Mm.
overlooked, but those of us who can see you, we need you in our corner. And I don't care whether they're 16 years old or 60. It takes them off guard because all of a sudden somebody who sees them for who they are and doesn't do anything negative, we're saying thank you. Oh my gosh, look at how amazing you are. That scares them so bad until they realize, no, I'm serious. It's beautiful, you know?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Anyway, such a good
Thank you.
conversation. There's so many good conversations that we could have, breaking off of this. And that's the hard part is there's so much to it. And people are just like, oh, wow. He sure uses a lot of words.
They're all valid words, though. I
Yes,
definitely.
yeah.
Thank
So
you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I really do appreciate that. I know it was probably some parts in it that were a bit tough,
yeah,
and thank you for allowing yourself to get vulnerable
you're
and
very welcome.
allowing
And
in your voice.
well, all I can say is thank you to all your millions of viewers and listeners and stuff like that. Right? Right, Michelle?
Yes. Oh,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Oh, yes.
Humor is a virtue. I'm still working on that one, okay?
I'll let you know when you have that one.
Okay. You better get in line for that one. I got lots of people say, I'll let you know when that happens.
Thank you so much. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.